Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it's the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the MOA broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, we got ourselves a great show lined up today. All kinds of good information. I can tell you right off the bat, we're not going to have time to get to all of it. That's okay. Most of it will be good enough. First off, we've got a couple of bullet points. Plastic surgeries gone wrong, more New York criminality. They just don't stop up there. We try and give them a break, but man, they keep coming back for more. Of course, we're going to have some sort of submission from a crazed Florida man. And we got some listener emails. And we got, oh boy, the lawsuit, if you'll recall. We'll get to it later, but it's the New York Attorney General has problems of her own, legal problems of her own. In fact, almost the exact same problems that she sued and I guess prosecuted Donald Trump for a while back. So it's going to be interesting. We'll get to that probably in the second half. Let's get started though. Let's see. First, we go to New York City. We'll read the headline. This is from the New York Post. New York City mom dies after being injured in botched Queen's butt implant removal by sham plastic surgeon. Man, that is a mouthful. No pun intended. Let's just get into the story. A mother of two who had her butt implants removed by a sham doctor in Queens has died weeks after the March procedure, records show. Maria Paz Peñalosa, 31, was initially left brain dead last month after the botched attempt to have the implants taken out inside an illegal liposuction clinic in a home in Ditmar, Steinway, but was taken off life support on April 11th. I guess I get the idea. I've never researched this. I'm not going to lie. I don't keep up on plastic surgery procedures. I don't know if they use, like for the butt implants they're talking about, is this a silicone thing? If there's some other type of thing. I know there's sometimes bodybuilders, others will use PMMA, which is polymethyl methacrylate. It forms like a almost plastic-like structure under the skin to give the appearance of larger muscularity and stuff. I don't know where she had the implants. Poor lady. I mean, it's a sad story. I'm not gonna laugh at this lady, even though it's a wild headline. I mean, she died. I gotta say, with the MOA ethos is always, what could we have done better to avoid this? Anytime you go into someone's home to have a medical procedure, you got to be asking yourself a question, is this a good idea? And I guess she didn't, unfortunately, think it was a bad enough idea to avoid. Anyway, let's move on. The phony surgeon, allegedly Felipe Hoyos Foronda, who tried to flee and was arrested at JFK Airport, administered lidocaine to the victim through a syringe, causing her to go into cardiac arrest, according to a complaint filed in Queens criminal court. "We never imagined this would happen," said the victim's sister. A friend went with her and called and said she was taken away in an ambulance, but she didn't know how bad it was. Prosecutors from the Queens District Attorney's Office believe Peñalosa died from lidocaine toxicity. Lidocaine, while generally safe, can be toxic if wrongly administered or with large injections in widespread areas. Man, this sounds horrible. While she was in the hospital, her friend went to the alleged doctor's home, illegal clinic, it says here, to pick up her belongings. And a landlord told the friend what happened, and that caused her to call the police. They managed to track the license plate to the Van Wyck Expressway, which is going through New York, and Port Authority cops caught him at the airport where he was getting ready to hop on a plane back to Colombia. That's like something out of a movie. Fortunately, they caught this guy. Otherwise, I don't know what our extradition situation is with Colombia, but who knows? He may have disappeared completely in Latin or Central or South America. Who knows where he would have wound up. He was arrested and charged with second-degree assault, a felony, as well as unauthorized practice of a profession, according to the complaint. Now, I'm sure people are wondering why there was no murder charge or manslaughter or something, but the Queens DA said, whenever circumstances change in a case, we re-examine the charges and it remains an active and ongoing investigation. And there is the train. As a quick reminder, folks, for those who don't know, we filmed this out in the knife shop here at the Wilson Custom Knives / Gear Convoy facility, and we have a train about, I don't know, several hundred meters away. The train tracks are, so that's what you're hearing if it's picking up the choo-choo train in the background. So hopefully they wind up leveling some more serious charges of this guy, because what a mess. This poor lady, I mean, how old was she? She was 31 years old. Died over having her butt implants removed in some guy's house. What a mess. Very sorry. Okay, this next one, again, is from New York. If you've got kids in the room, this is a newspaper article. We're not going to get overly graphic, but it is of a disturbing nature. So just a heads up. This is disgusting. Here's the headline, then we'll get into the story. I'm not going to make a whole lot of jokes or commentary on this one. It's disturbing enough as it is, but I was going to share this one last week's episode, but didn't have time. Had too many things going on. There are some insane and messed up people out there in the world, man. You got to be careful. You just never know what. And this guy, unfortunately, made what could have been a very fatal mistake. We'll get to that in a minute. But there are some really messed up people. Here we go. Sicko sought for allegedly sexually abusing corpse on New York City subway, according to sources in the New York Post. Police are searching for a sicko accused of sexually abusing a man's corpse on a Manhattan subway, according to police and sources. Ugh. What a I mean, I'm going to tell you, I've lived in New York. I've spent a good deal of time there. I have seen some extremely disgusting and even perverse things on the subway. If you've never been to New York, you don't understand. It is a jungle and a zoo all at the same time. You see things there that you never would imagine, and you're probably not going to see in many other places, especially if you come from like a more like the Midwest, or a more sane, normal, quote unquote normal, what they call in New York, flyover country, the Midwest. If you come from like a small town or a normal place, New York is just I could do a whole show or more just on the insane things that I saw both on the subway and walking down the streets of New York. And people they keep on walking. It's an interesting thing, because New Yorkers get the reputation sometimes of being rude. I don't know that I agree with that. New Yorkers, they know, man, it's wild and in that city. At least that's the way it used to be. I don't know what it's like now. They keep on moving. Now, I've also seen New Yorkers intervene and help people when it was the least likely circumstances. You wouldn't have thought they would, because of a variety of reasons. And they jumped in and they helped people that needed help. So I think New Yorkers sometimes get a bad rap because people don't understand. They have that gruff personality oftentimes, but there is also a very, in a lot of the city and a lot of the communities, there's a very deep-seated and deep-rooted sense of community, and they're not bad people at all. It's just different. They don't, often say, if you walk by, and if you're from the Midwest or a rural or a small town, you may say, hey, how's it going? Or howdy, or whatever, nod your head, tip your hat, wave. They're just going to blow right past you in most cases and ignore that, unless they're transplants from somewhere else. Okay, New Yorkers just don't do that. They don't play that, homie. But they're oftentimes, man, they will be the first to help out in certain situations. Not always. I've seen New Yorkers walk past while some heinous things are happening on the sidewalk, but sometimes they will jump in. It's a very complex, social dynamic. It's very interesting. But anyway, we go back to our story here. The unidentified accused necrophiliac is sought by the NYPD for allegedly having sex with the dead man on an R train just around 11:45 p.m. Tuesday, police sources said. What in the world? What is going on in this world? He then left the Whitehall subway station in Lower Manhattan shortly after midnight, sources told the Post. Now, what a shame, because Whitehall Street, if you're not familiar with the city, so Manhattan is this long, thin island, and towards the bottom third of it, half of it, I don't know, it is immediately adjacent to Brooklyn, separated by a river there. So Whitehall Station at the very bottom of that. If he had just gotten out, there is a 15-minute walk if you take they're thinking you got to take a ferry. Probably another 10 minutes or so if you walked up and cut over on the bridge. He could have crossed over there and gone to Grimaldi's and had an absolutely delicious slice of pizza. But instead, he was allegedly having sex with dead men on the R train. Wow. What a mess. Now, I'm sorry, before I forget about Grimaldi's, I think I've mentioned this in other episodes of the show. It is delicious pizza. There's a couple of places in Brooklyn that are right near the waterfront, the base of the Brooklyn Bridge, and other areas around there. Absolutely delicious pizza. Now, Grimaldi's, though, they had the rep, man. If you went there on a Friday night, and this is what I was saying about New Yorkers, if you went there on a Friday night, there would be a line around the block to wait and get either a whole pie. And if you're not from New York or other certain cities in America, yes, they call a pizza a pie. It's not just a pizza. You call it a pie. And they would get either a slice or a pie, whatever. There would be a line around the block, though. And this is the neat thing about New Yorker. You could be having I say neat, it wasn't really my style, but you have to appreciate when you're in Rome, do as the Romans do, as the old saying goes. You could be having a conversation with somebody, and if you spoke up loudly enough and someone 2 or 3 people over, like in this line, this happened to me on more than one occasion. You're waiting for Grimaldi's pizza, and there's somebody 2 or 3 people groups over. They hear what you're saying. They just, especially Italians, no offense, I had a lot of good time with Italians. You will never, in my opinion, you will never, ever be better fed than when you are around Italian women, especially mothers and grandmothers. I spent a lot of time around a number of Italian families, and especially in Staten Island. They just keep bringing food. It's crazy. It's big like platters, dishes of food. Then appetizers, hors d'oeuvres, and drinks, and ouzo and all this different stuff. They just keep on coming with the food and the alcohol, and then espresso. It is just nonstop. Some of the absolute best food I've ever had in my life, and they just don't stop. You're ready to pass out. I remember I was actually helping a family do a job in their home one time, and they just kept bringing food until I had to turn it away. I was ready to just take a nap from these delicious meatball subs they made, their sandwiches, and the other. I don't even remember all the food. This is going back a ways, but just amazing food. But this Grimaldi's, Grimaldi's pizza there, you'd be having a conversation, and especially Italians, man, they hear you, and they would just jump in. And next thing you know, you're going from just talking to your buddy over here. All of a sudden, you got 2 or 3 or more strangers that they're going back and forth, and then it just it grows from there. It's a group conversation, so it's an interesting dynamic. I think that sometimes, as much as we've talked about the negative stuff that happens in New York City on the show, I think sometimes New Yorkers do get a bad rap. If you don't know, you never experienced it, it's hard to explain that dynamic. And in most cases, in my opinion, it's not done with ill will. It's just it's a very different social dynamic there. So anyway, we're getting way off track. All right. The deceased man, later identified, he wasn't identified in the original article, later identified as Jorge Gonzalez, was remembered as a committed family man who had so many dreams before the 37-year-old mysteriously died and his corpse was sexually abused by another man on a Manhattan subway train last week. Their words, not mine, guys. He wasn't just a random person. He was a father, family man, and cared about his family in Mexico, said his 38-year-old wife, Teresa, who I guess they've been separated for several years. Investigators do not believe the two knew each other. Now, here's where it takes a wrinkle. The person of interest identified by police is hang on, we'll get to that in a minute. The person identified by the police is a heroin addict. His brother told the Post from his front door in the Bronx Thursday. He said he had been staying with him since he was released from prison a few months ago. He had been locked up for a while, said his 56-year-old brother, though he couldn't remember if it was for robbery or assault. The brother hadn't seen him in a few days, and he had started staying out late. I guess he was getting back into his drug lifestyle, potentially, according to his brother. As to whether or not he did what he said, the necrophilia deal, I don't think he did that. He's not that type of person, the brother said. They said he took his thing out and put it in the guy's ... Yeah, I don't think he did that. He's not a pervert. Alrighty then. Can you imagine having that conversation on the doorstep of your home with the newspaper, recording this, probably a camera in your face? My God. Oh my goodness. According to the brother, they're saying the police need to do a better investigation because my brother is not like that. No matter how bad the heroin addiction is, he's not like that, he insisted, blessing himself. Their words, not mine. Police, this was the part I was referencing earlier. This is where it got interesting. Police are also looking to speak with a woman who handed the deceased victim a cigarette of some kind before he died and the man then committed this. So this lady, I guess, gave him a cigarette. He smoked it, and then she was seen rummaging through the man's pockets after he smoked and became unconscious. And then she leaves, and the other guy comes along and allegedly committed sexual acts on his lifeless body. Now, fortunately, there was a security camera that caught all this. The dead man had originally boarded the subway around 8 p.m. The suspect got on about 3 hours later, although they don't know where. He first made contact with the dead man around 11:20, and by 11:45 p.m., again, I'm just going to read this word for word. The security footage showed the twisted suspect engaging in sexual acts with the victim. He got off the train around 12:08 p.m., it says. I think they mean a.m., though, sources said. Oh. I mean, what a bizarre story. I mean, what do we learn from this? We're not going to make fun of a dead man that was sexually assaulted post-mortem here. I guess I would say don't smoke things from strangers. And this is an interesting thing because while I've been on the subway and all over this country, I've seen people in parks, on trains, buses, all kind of things. A perfect stranger will walk up. They'll ask him for a cigarette, or I've seen people walk up and ask a perfect stranger for drugs, and people give him a pill. I once saw a guy pull pills out of a trash can. He had no idea what they were. He was walking down the street. He looked in a trash can and saw some pills. And I was standing next to the trash can, just throwing something away. And he picked them up, and I said, "Are you going to eat those pills?" And he popped the pills right in front of me and swallowed them, smiled, and walked away. That is a true story. I mean, so imagine, I don't know if this lady put something in the cigarette. It may have been that guy's time anyway. I have no idea. But it looks like it's a possibility there was something in the cigarette that caused the guy to either pass out or died. Maybe it combined with some other medication or drug that he had in his system. But man, what a mess. Okay, one more crazy story. Then we're going to get on to some better news, a little less depressing. Again, from the New York Post, Wisconsin teen killed parents so he could use their money to assassinate Trump. Wow, here we go again. According to the feds, says the article, a Wisconsin teen allegedly murdered his mother and stepfather to obtain the financial means and autonomy, being on his own, I guess, necessary to kill President Trump and overthrow the U.S. government, federal authorities said in court documents. Nikita Kasap, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, 17 years of age, was arrested in March and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of hiding a corpse after killing his mother, Tatiana Kasap, 35, and stepfather, Donald Mayer, 51, in their Waukesha home. Then he stashed their bullet-riddled bodies under blankets for weeks. Holy smokes. So I need to get a sip. Throat getting a little dry. Now, what happened next? Documents allegedly written by the teen and reviewed by the FBI called for the assassination of Trump and the start of a revolution to save the white race, according to court documents obtained by ABC News. This guy sounds like he may have some problems. The teen's alleged scrawlings show images of Adolf Hitler with some stuff we're not going to put on the radio. We try and keep this a family show as much as possible. He was in touch with other parties about his plan to kill the president and overthrow the government of the United States. And he paid for, at least in part, a drone and explosives to be used as a weapon of mass destruction to commit an attack, investigators said on the federal affidavit. It appears other parties whom he was in contact with had taken action to provide him with assistance. They're also pursuing federal charges including conspiracy, presidential assassination, and use of weapons of mass destruction. Wow. It doesn't say in this article. I looked in 2 or 3 different articles. I didn't see how they made contact with him initially, what alerted them to the whole thing, and where they picked him up at. But they performed a welfare check on the family's home on February 28, after the team was absent from Waukesha West High School for 2 weeks. He was gone for 2 weeks. They went to go check on the home. That's when they found the mother and the father. They were buried under piles of clothes and blankets in the hallway with multiple shots to the neck, upper torso, abdomen, and right wrist, according to a complaint filed by authorities. The stepfather was discovered in the home's first-floor office with a gunshot wound to the head. According to the filing, both bodies were decomposed beyond recognition, forcing authorities to use other methods to confirm their identities. Cassup was in court on April 9 for a preliminary hearing on his state charges. He has not yet entered a plea and remains in custody. Wow. You got to wonder what happened to this. I say kid, he's 17 years old. That's whatever you want to look at that. Wonder what happened to radicalize and get him so, aside from assassinating the president, why kill your parents? It was apparently his biological mother and a stepfather. Okay, whatever, that can be an interesting dynamic, but why kill them both? It says it was for the funds, and so he would have the freedom, the autonomy to go do this. But, there's a lot going on there to kill your parents so you can take their money and guns and try and buy an explosive drone or whatever in the world he was trying to cook up, allegedly, and then travel across the country to assassinate the president and, according to the article, overthrow the country. Man, what a mess. Okay, so lots of heavy stuff there. Let's lighten up a little bit. We've got some other stuff. We've got some listener emails. We've only got time for one today. And then we've got a successful rescue story, which was a really cool video. I won't be able to put it in the podcast here for the Patreon subscribers, but I can put a link to it in there. It's really neat. Excellent footage. Don't forget, send your questions. If you've got questions, feedback, or whatever, to info@gearconvoy.com. And what we're going to do each week, the best question, suggestion, whatever, that you send to info@gearconvoy.com, we're going to send you out a free mini survival kit for participating. Just our way of showing appreciation to the feedback and the information we get back and the support from our listeners and followers and viewers. Also, this is what we're going to get to. Okay, I got to keep moving. We're running out of time here, but we are thinking of doing, so we do the weekly podcast that gets released on, it goes out usually on Saturday morning through Spotify and the other podcast services, Apple, iHeartRadio, and all so on and so forth. And then the video version usually goes up that day or the next day. It takes a while to get that all edited and put together. It's actually a little bit more work than it sounds like as far as just the rendering time. But that's our hour-long weekly episode. We were thinking of adding in, we've got a couple of emails that were interested in several different topics, but the one that kept coming up was true crime. Now, if you're interested in that, if you think that would be an interesting topic, let us know. We're thinking about doing a 30-minute episode once a week, like midweek. So there will be the weekend episode and then like a midweek episode based on true crime, not the make it out alive and survival outdoors, wilderness preparedness type stuff. If that interests you, send us an email at info@gearconvoy.com and let us know what you think. We're thinking, again, a 30-minute format. We could do 45, either one. Let us know what you prefer, 30 or 45-minute format, whether you would like audio and or video for that particular episode each week, and then whether you like the concept of true crime. If you prefer a different topic, let us know. But that was the one we were kind of leaning towards, and that kind of appeals to me. I like true crime stuff as well. So anyway, let us know. Again, send that to info@gearconvoy.com. Okay, now we go to our listeners' email, viewers' email, whatever. This one is from David. He says he is in the American Southwest, so I'm guessing hot and dry. I don't know, Arizona somewhere maybe. Who knows? He didn't particularly say. We're not going to put that on him. Hello, I'm enjoying the broadcast. I listen on Spotify, so I get automatically notified when a new episode comes out. Good plan. Just a quick plug for Spotify. I don't get anything from them, but I am not a big fan of all these different services now. However, I do like Spotify platform. It's very simple. I have a basic subscription. I don't even have a subscription, just an account there with my email, and it automatically notifies me and keeps me abreast of new developments with any musician or podcast or anything else that I follow. I like that platform a lot. So good job, David. I have two questions. My first question is about hammocks. You mentioned that you like hammock camping. What do you do in areas without... Okay, now what? What do you do in areas, or is there a way to go hammock camping in areas that don't have a lot of trees? I'll finish the whole email and we'll come back. Also, I enjoyed this segment on MREs and dehydrated food. Having been in the military, I've had more than my fair share of MREs and agree they are not my first choice at all. The dehydrated meals you talked about making at home sound interesting. Do you sell these on your website? If not, how complicated is it to make them? I don't really want to take on another huge hobby at this point in life. Anyway, thanks for taking the time, and I enjoy the show. Keep it up, David. Okay, good questions, David. First off, no, I do not sell those meals or make them commercially, so that is just information that is for your own benefit. We'll get more into that later, though. I just like people to enjoy it. It's a great idea I've been using for literally almost 2 decades now, and I like people to use it. We'll get into that a little bit more. As far as your question about hammocks, if you don't have a lot of trees, I live in Oregon, and trees are generally very, very abundant here, so it's not a problem. If you don't have a lot of trees, or you're going to be in an area where you don't have a lot of trees, then I don't know that I would suggest hammock camping. Now, you can. I've been in an area where I wound up having to make camp early for the night because I didn't get as far as I thought, and I was on a flat plain, and I had very little in the way of trees, and the trees that I was around did not look safe enough. As in like a widowmaker, a branch or a tree might be dead and possibly ready to come down. So I didn't want to tie off to them and be stuck under there all night. You can stake out your tarp or the rain fly of your hammock to either poles on the ground like your trekking poles, or you can drive sticks or stakes in the ground and tie it off and then kind of pitch your hammock like a traditional tent. But no, it is not going to be as streamlined an experience if you put the hammock on the ground. If I were in a desert area that didn't have trees, the odd thing about the high desert here, we frequently have trees, so it's not a big deal, or at least in the areas I go backpacking. If I was in an area where we didn't have trees, though, I probably would just go to a one-man tent or something like that. If I was where you're talking about, where you're going to be more likely to have snakes and other critters, I wouldn't just do a rain fly or tarp shelter. I wouldn't want to be exposed on the ground. That's me. Some people do it. I prefer to be encased in something that's sealed so that, snakes, which are seeking warmth frequently at nighttime, people don't realize in the desert, depending on where you're at, it can get surprisingly cold at night. It gets chilly. Like here in the high desert, the other day, it was 72 during the daytime, and at around 3, 4 in the morning, it was 28 degrees. Okay? So that's going to cause things to come looking for a body heat, and a human is a nice source of warm heat to cuddle up to and stay warm. So that being said, I would probably go with a tent in that area. You could find a way to rig the hammock up. I wouldn't do it if that was me, but find what works best for you. But that's my official answer. Some people, if you're doing car camping, like at the beach or other places or a campsite, you can tie it off between your vehicle and another tree, or between 2 vehicles or other poles. There are a variety of ways. But in general, if you're in some place where there's only scrub trees or not much in the way of real foliage, I would just go with a tent. That's me personally. Okay, we're going to go to the break. When we get back, we're going to answer a second question about the MREs, and we've got a whole nother segment coming up. All kinds of good info. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be back. More Make It Out Alive with Sam Wilson after this.
Want to get your business noticed? Sponsor a show on KKFO Gold Country Radio on 103.3 FM and create awareness through on-air announcements, our online stream at goldcountryradio.org, and our podcasts that live on forever. Your message reaches a broad local audience while also targeting listeners who choose to tune in to the shows they love. Plus, we promote your sponsorship across our website and social media. For more information, email goldcountryradio@gmail.com. Call 541-238-6989 or visit goldcountryradio.org. Gold Country Radio, your message heard locally and beyond.
You're listening to the MOA broadcast with Sam Wilson. Will you make it out alive? And we are back from the break, folks. I am your host of the Make It Out Alive broadcast, Sam Wilson. If you recall, before the break, we had an email from a listener, David, in the American Southwest, and he had a question about using hammocks in areas where there aren't a lot of trees. We discussed that pretty thoroughly before the break. You can do it. I have done it once or twice. It wasn't the great. It's not really the purpose of a hammock, right? It's like trying to take an SUV and do a road race with it, or a sports car and going off-roading. You may be able to get a certain distance or enjoy it to a certain degree. It may get the job done, but that's not what it was designed for. So my recommendation would be, if you're in an area where there's not a lot of trees or there aren't trees that can support your weight, I would go with a small one-man tent or a tarp shelter or whatever it is that is going to work. Sometimes if you're doing a group backpacking trip, and I've done this before, it can be beneficial as long as you have the right tent mates. You can get one, like a 3-man tent, and one person will carry the tent itself, one person will carry the poles, another will carry the rain fly, and so forth. And that's beneficial, but you want to make sure you got the right people with you. And, again, you're going to want to match your tent to your AO or area of operations. Now, that being said, the second part of his email was he enjoyed the segment on MREs and dehydrated food. That's been 2 or 3 episodes ago. We've actually got a lot of feedback on that, or several emails on it of folks that were interested in that. So we'll get into that a little bit again. He asked if we sell the dehydrated meals on gearconvoy.com. That's our website. We sell all kinds of knives, outdoor gear, survival gear, and just a bunch of stuff. The answer is no. I don't sell those. I share that information simply because it's worked well for me, and I've enjoyed it. It's brought me a great deal of pleasure out in the outdoors, and I figured it would work well for others as well. So the good news is it is extremely easy to make these dehydrated meals. I'm working on a video series right now for our Patreon subscribers. If you go to gearconvoy.com, there's a tab at the top for the MOA broadcast, and you can find the links to the Patreon page. For a very, very small monthly subscription price, you get access to all the videos, including the video version of the broadcast or podcast, whatever. We're going to do a video series. I've already got it started, and some of them are in progress. Just been extremely swamped here in the knife shop, showing how to both rehydrate and cook those meals using very, very simple and cheap gear and equipment in the field. And we're also going to get around eventually to showing to a video, or several videos actually, showing how to dehydrate it. Now, over the years, I've used a variety of different things to dehydrate foods. I've had food dehydrators. My problem with food dehydrators is they're always, or most of the ones I've had, all the ones I've actually owned personally, were the round ones, and they have that, that column going up the middle, which is what takes away the moist air. You got to get special liners or make or cut liners for the trays, and it just, for some reason, it always annoyed me. Trying to pour stuff into those round trays, I always spilled a bunch of stuff. Now what I use, even though I think I still have a dehydrator somewhere, I'm not sure, I may have sold it, I just use my oven. It's so easy to do this. You can dehydrate all of the good candidates for dehydration right in your oven. We'll talk about another episode, or you can just look it up on the internet. It's very, very easy to do. Usually takes about 6 to 8 hours depending on what you're dehydrating, and you're good to go. I've been using that method for going on, off and on, 10, 12 years now. I think I started not long after my first dehydrator broke, and I need to get something done for a trip. But anyway, it's very easy, and I'm not making a buck off of that. That's just something we're sharing with people as far as the information. I don't sell any of that stuff. So that's that. The other thing is, did he mention it here? He mentioned about how MREs, when he was in the military, they're not his first choice at all. I'm not putting down MREs and freeze-dried foods and meals. By almost any standard, these are a miracle food or a miracle product for the people that actually need them, particularly the soldiers, hikers, campers, and such. The fact that you can have food that actually tastes like pretty much real normal food, and it gives you the calories and everything you need, the nutrients to keep you going, and it tastes as good as it does, even if you got to slather it in some hot sauce or barbecue sauce or whatever else. It's pretty amazing. The MREs and the freeze-dried meals, they're both amazing. However, for me personally, my feeling has always been whenever I eat them, it's like, ugh. It's like whenever you eat too much American carbs. They're all loaded down with this enriched folic acid and goodness knows what else that makes you feel full and heavy. That's how those MREs feel to me. They're not bad. If I was going to do 1 or 2 here or there, it wouldn't faze me at all. But that's not something I'm going to pack for 2, 3, 4, 5 days in the backcountry and eat those every single meal. Plus, whenever I get around to getting the videos are mostly recorded, I have to just edit them together and clean everything up in post-production. When you see how small and light the dehydrated versions are, it's unreal. It's grams or a couple of ounces compared to 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds for these MREs and such. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. That's why I prefer, for me personally, the dehydrated meals. You dehydrate a meat and then some vegetables, and then your choice of either rice or pasta. And when you do that, you can combine those, and there are even more out there. If you do the internet searches, you can find literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different homemade dehydrated meals. The possibilities are almost limitless, and you can have some you eat. It tastes just like home cooking. The other good advantage to that is you can prepare those and put them in either vacuum sealed bags or freeze them or put them in your emergency preparedness containers. Make sure you put a date on them because depending on what you're dehydrating, it may have a shelf life. But whenever the time comes, the power goes out, whatever, you take out your trusty Coleman stove or whatever it is you use. All you got to do is have boiling water, and you've got a nice, ground beef, rice, and vegetable dish for the entire family in a matter of 20 minutes. It tastes just like you're eating regular food. So that's my take. Doesn't have all the extra additives and preservatives and the metric ton of salt that goes into the other ones, which is funnily enough, a metric ton is not that much more than a regular ton. A kilogram is 2.2 pounds. A metric ton is 1,000 kilograms, so that's 2,200 pounds. A regular standard U.S. American ton is 2,000 pounds. So it sounds like a hyperbole. It's just really for effect. A metric ton really isn't that much different. Okay. Let's see. We covered that. Hydrating, use your own oven, yada, yada, yada. Okay, let's move on. A good story. Now, this one comes to us from Riverside, California, where we had harrowing California trail rescue of woman's death-gripping side of cliff. This one comes to us from sfgate.com. I think I've got a couple of different stories from them over the years. They do good stuff from what I've seen, or at least I like reading their stories. They're clear and they get to the point. A search and rescue team completed an intense technical rescue in Southern California recently after a hiker became stranded on a steep cliff along the Pacific Crest Trail. I need to get a sip here. Give me 1 second, folks. Okay. Back to our story. Now, this lady, it was a female hiker. She looks like she did everything right. I saw the video. She had her gear. She was in physical condition, so forth. Apparently, the story doesn't say exactly, real clearly. It looks like she slid off of a trail, and it was like a bunch of loose rock and shale and that sort of thing. And I guess the trail had some damage or degradation due to flooding or a storm or whatever. And she slid off and was on a near vertical side of this cliff next to a trail. It was scary. This lady did a really good job. I got to give it to her. She did several things right. Number one, we'll go to the story. She used an emergency communication device to signal for help after she became stuck along the whitewater portion of the trail near the Riverside-San Bernardino County line. And the RCSO, that's Riverside County Sheriff's Office, aviation unit posted on Instagram with a video of the rescuer. So she did a couple of things right. I don't know exactly what they mean by an emergency communication device. In the video, which is, you should go check the video. If you don't have Instagram, you need to go check it out. It is, their Instagram account is rso.aviation. Really good video. It's from the point of view of the actual rescuer dude himself, the SAR guy. They lowered him down on a cable from the helicopter. This lady is stuck on the side of this cliff, and I got to give it to her, man. She held it together. I mean, a lot of people, maybe myself included, I don't know. I've been in situations similar to that, but I didn't require a rescue. I slid off an ice-covered, anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not easy. I mean, if she had fallen, there was nothing there to save her. And she kept it together pretty doggone good while this guy. So if you watch the video, they have a helicopter, hovering above where she is just clinging for life. They use the term death gripping. If what they mean by that, have you ever been in a situation where, the way I've always heard that expression used, it's like when you're clinging for dear life. I was in a situation where I was assaulted one time and I wound up holding on to this guy, this psychopath, in my opinion, for dear life. And once the adrenaline starts pumping, the muscles in your forearms and your arms, they clamp down tighter than you can possibly imagine. It's almost like when somebody gets tased. If you've ever experienced that, the electricity causes your muscles to just contract at a rate greater than you could do voluntarily. And it lasts usually for 30, 60, 90 seconds, something like that. This lady was there for a while. I don't know exactly how long, I guess about an hour or something like that. But what happens is it's almost like a spasm. You're holding on for dear life. Now, the interesting thing is, in that situation, I had that death grip going for, it was probably a minute and a half, I would say about 90 seconds. Whenever the adrenaline dump is gone and, you return to normal, my arms were so exhausted, they felt like lead pipes hanging off my elbows, my forearms were. For the next 3 or 4 days, I almost could not make a fist and close my hand properly because the muscles were so exhausted. It was almost like I did a full nonstop day of forearm workouts to failure. It was wild, but I could not make a complete fist for at least a day or two. And it was very painful, like muscular soreness, like injury, like muscular soreness for at least another 2 days past that. I'll never forget it. So this poor lady, she is doing a good job. She's got her full backpack on, like a 50, 60 liter pack, it looked like, which is what you would have for usually a 2 to 4 day hike, give or take, depending on how you pack. And she's holding on to her hiking poles and her cell phone in her hand and everything. They lower this guy down from the helicopter on the hoist, and he basically bear hugs her. I couldn't see in the video whether it was from the front or back. I think they twisted her around. He got her from the front, and he supports her like this because he was too afraid to let her, she was hanging so precariously. He didn't want to have her let go and grab a hold of something. So he bear hugs her. They lift them both up and swing them around and move the helicopter until they're over level ground, and then they let him down. It's an amazing video. This lady had guts, man. She wasn't sitting there bawling. She screamed a little bit, but who wouldn't? She didn't really know what was going on, and she was probably so worried that because of her exhaustion that she would just fall. But she looked like she was very well prepared. And again, I don't know if it was a PLB, a personal locator beacon, or her cell phone. She was holding her phone in her hand, and you got to give it to the rescue guy, man. He was cool as a cucumber. He walked her through it, kept her together. He grabbed her phone and saved it when it looked like she was almost going to drop it, and stuck it in her pack. It was an absolute success. Great job. Very pleased. Those are the outcomes you want to see. Everybody did just about everything right. I mean, you can't hold it against somebody and say they failed if they're walking and the trail collapses beneath them and they slide off the edge. That's not their fault. But she had her gear. Again, it looked like she was very well prepared. I don't think they give her name. I didn't see it, but yeah, it's not in here. Kudos to you, ma'am. Excellent job. Very proud of you. Nice work. Way to go. Okay, so back to the story. That we pretty much told most of it. She'd been death gripping. Yeah, so she was holding there for over an hour by the time the rescuers arrived. There was not a clean purchase or ledge or perch for her to put her legs and feet. So she is like hanging. If you got watching the video, her legs were up and she was almost like crabbed up, holding onto this ledge. I am shocked that she held on. I mean, I was very impressed. Very nice job. Due to her very precarious spot, which she was exhausted from that position for over an hour with a heavy pack and unsure footing, they determined the safest option was to bear hug her and climb to the top, which they did successfully. Nice job, guys. Again, if you have an Instagram account, I think you can still access it from the internet, even if you don't have an Instagram account. But the Riverside, whatever it is, RSO, Sheriff's Office, rso.aviation is their account at Instagram. It was a neat video. A rescue specialist then slowly lowers himself toward her, and he safely puts his arms around her. Then he's hoisted by the helicopter. They're in the air for several moments, and then they get placed safely on flat ground. And the hiker appears to be in shock. She just collapsed flat on the ground. He had to check and see. Poor lady, he had to check and see if she was alive. She was exhausted. If you've never experienced an adrenaline dump, an hour long goes far beyond the scope of a regular adrenaline dump. What happens though, if you've never experienced this, and you actually can train your body to do this almost on demand, I can promise you that you can. You wouldn't want to in most situations in life. But anyways, after an adrenaline dump, because adrenaline's a very powerful drug, when it courses through your system, depending on how old you are and what condition you're in, you 45 to 60 or so to 90 seconds of just amazing power. You're almost immune from pain. You don't feel what's going on. It's a powerful chemical compound in your body. But when that adrenaline dump is over with, usually depending on the severity of it, you feel this overwhelming just exhaustion. you just slump to the ground, even if you're in good condition. Time seems to slow down. You're just done. The last thing. So I don't know what this lady must have had a steel will to hold on like that for an hour, but she collapsed to the ground. And I mean, I cannot blame her. Anybody in any physical condition would have been exhausted. So yeah, great job. Let's see. So they said, as far as what happened, the Pacific Crest Trail Association told SF Gate that portions of the famous trail are severely damaged and in need of repair, particularly in the area where the hiker became stuck, as 2023's tropical storm Hillary left parts of the trail washed out entirely. So again, when that happens, I don't know if there were signs or not. There's not always signage. I was on a trail once here in Oregon that had literally been destroyed by snow and ice and then melting and runoff. And I had checked with the online community group there about that hiking trail. It was supposedly in good repair. I didn't check with the local ranger station, but I checked, I think, online. They had some sort of form you could submit. It was supposed to all be good. I got up to about 5,200 feet, which is about a mile high, and the trail was gone. And it was just a big flat sheet of ice and everything. If I hadn't had maps and GPS, I could have very, very easily got myself in serious trouble. So you can't hold that against somebody. That isn't necessarily a bad decision. Earlier this month, the Riverside County Sheriff's Aviation Unit had rescued another Pacific Crest Trail hiker in serious medical distress. So apparently they had to be hoisted to safety along with 2 other hikers. So, pardon me. I guess that particular portion of the trail or that area has degraded somewhat with the weather and whatever else. Okay, folks, we don't got time. I'm going to cut this segment. I was going to include a segment on a recent study of the effectiveness of masks with COVID-19. A very controversial subject, and as we have shown time and time again here at the MOA broadcast, we don't get political. We don't try and shove an opinion down your throat. We give you the news as it's recorded and reported, and you make your own decision. That's what the news used to do. If we include commentary or opinion piece, we make sure we note that this is my opinion. This is what I think. The problem with these masks is it's now become so politically divided, I think. If you believe one thing, then you're in this political group. If you believe the other thing, then you're in this political group. And it seems the twains shall never meet. So it's become so politically divided. I don't think either side's really ready or going to change anytime soon, no matter what the research says. I will say this. Many of these studies that talk about the efficacy of masks are less than conclusive. That in itself is problematic because if something is truly efficacious, if it's truly effective and it works, usually it's pretty easy to determine and establish. If it really made a big difference, Let me give you a couple examples and then we'll move on. We got other stories to do and I want to argue. Let's look at a couple of different examples again briefly. Antibiotics. When antibiotics came out, they immediately became very effective for treating bacterial infections. There was no doubt when you administered someone antibiotics who had a bacterial infection, it worked. Okay, it was efficacious. It was productive. There were immediate results. Okay, we don't have to wonder. We know it worked. It didn't take 30 studies all over the world to go, I don't know, I think masks work. I think they didn't. When antibiotics came out, it made a huge impact. Okay, another example, a very clear difference that made a huge difference, insulin. Okay, we know insulin works. When you have someone who's diabetic and you administer insulin, it doesn't take tons and tons of studies that are so close, the margins are razor thin, it works. Aspirin, another good one. If someone is hurting, has physical pain, you administer aspirin, even if you don't tell them what it is, aspirin works. The advent of aspirin was a big deal. Okay, it was called a miracle drug too at its time. So all I'm saying is, if you have to fight that hard to see if you can possibly discern if it made a difference, chances are, probably not. That's my opinion on that part. The other parts are, you can make your own decision. What we always encourage is educate yourself. Think about it, talk with your family about it, and then make the best decision for you and your family. We don't look down on people's decisions. You do what's best for you, and that's the right decision for you. Okay, now this one is a little spicy. Here's the headline. Trump administration refers New York AG, that's Attorney General Letitia James, for potential prosecution over alleged mortgage fraud. New York Post. Now, folks, I'm not going to get political. We at the MOA broadcast remain apolitical, but you cannot deny the massive irony in this situation. When was the date? This just happened 2 days ago. If you'll recall, Letitia James, or as some have called her online, Big Tish, don't know if that's what she goes by or not. There's a lot of things you see and read online. If you recall, going back the last couple of years, she was prosecuting Trump, suing, I forget what it was, a prosecution? Yeah, prosecuting him for allegedly overvaluing the value of some of his properties and his net worth in order to secure favorable loan and mortgage terms, okay? They eventually found him guilty or liable or whatever, and they got him with a $300 or $450 million penalty. The whole thing's still going through appeals. Get a load of this, though. Now, here's the thing before we jump into this. In Trump's case, I'm not defending him, I'm reporting the facts. In Trump's case, the loans they were repaid. There was no default, there were no late payments, and the bank that issued them said they had no problem. There was no victim in this crime. Okay? The AG took it upon herself and her team, apparently, I guess, from what I was able to gather, to go after them. The bank that issued Trump the loans, or his business, even said they would do business again with him, I believe, if I read that correctly. There was no problem. Okay. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who infamously declared that no one is above the law when she was targeting Donald Trump, was hit with a federal criminal referral for instances of alleged mortgage fraud on Tuesday, according to a letter obtained by The Post. Documents allege that James had falsified records to get home loans for a property in Virginia that she claimed was her principal residence in 2023. That's a key point, because that's while she was serving as New York State prosecutor. That occurred in August 23, weeks before she began her civil fraud trial. That's what it was, civil fraud trial against the Trump organization, which ended in a $454 million judgment. So here's the problem. She was the sitting Attorney General of New York and is required by law to have her primary residence in the state of New York, even though her mortgage applications listed her intent to have the Virginia property as her primary home, allegedly. So that's problem number one. It appears she may have misrepresented this to continue her Virginia property purchase to secure a lower interest rate and more favorable loan terms. There's problem one. She also purchased a 5-family dwelling in Brooklyn in February 2001, but according to other documents, it is supposed to be a 4-family. She represented it allegedly as a 4-family dwelling. What's the difference? When it becomes a 5-family dwelling, it becomes a commercial rate and you have higher interest rates. So according to the documents, allegedly, she represented as a lower occupancy building to get more favorable loan terms. Now, here is one of the most bizarre terms of this, or items. Pulte attached several documents also showing that James purchased another property with her father as a co-signer, but falsely listed the pair as husband and wife in both 1983 and 2000, allegedly. While this was a long time ago, it raises serious concerns about the validity of her representations on mortgage applications. Uh-oh, that's not good, folks. Loans secured by the property could have reduced her mortgage interest rate by as much as 1% and had lower monthly payments due to the various factors listed above. So according to this guy who reported to the Attorney General, she appears to have falsified her records to meet certain lending requirements and receive favorable loan terms. According to the criminal referral, these documents are quite damning, George Washington University law professor and Post columnist Jonathan Turley told Fox News. These are misleading statements, he said. Either it's your principal residence in Virginia, or it's not in New York. Either you're married to your father, or he's your father. Uh-oh. Turley also described it as perfectly crushing that James would face criminal allegations similar to those she brought against Trump and his family. As for James, according to Turley, if we apply the Leticia James or the Big Tish, allegedly, standard that she created, there'd be little question here. This seems pretty straightforward. I don't know how that's going to shake out, folks. I'm not a lawyer. Frankly, half that's a little confusing, but I would not want to be in her shoes right now. But in case you missed it, she's being accused by a lot of evidence here of doing the almost exact same thing that she accused and prosecuted Trump for in the Trump organization. That's going to be interesting. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up. We go to, that's right, you guessed it, Florida once again. I'm going to read the headline and then we'll jump in. Cocaine became so irate. Man attacks Brevard County subway employees. Mr. Edward Cocaine, that's right. His last name is actually Cocaine. He faces charges of aggravated assault, burglary, and assault or battery and battery. A 45-year-old man was arrested after he pushed workers at a Brevard County Subway sandwiches restaurant before pulling out a knife, according to a news release. On April 5th, a man later identified as Mr. Edward Cocaine, or Eddie Cocaine, went into the restaurant located at 390 St. Charles Avenue in Merritt Island with another man. He got into an argument with employees over what he believed were their bad attitudes. What is it with Subway sandwiches? First we had Juicy Smouye in Chicago. Then we got Eddie Cocaine in Florida. Stay out of Subway sandwiches, man. That could be hazardous for your health. Oh my goodness. Deputies said Cocaine later went behind the counter and pushed one of the employees before pulling out a knife. He then raised the knife over his head, drawing it back in a manner suggestive of a potential strike, according to the probable cause affidavit. Deputies said the man with Cocaine tried to restrain him before both men left the restaurant. They were able to track Cocaine and his friend down on Wednesday. He faces charges of aggravated assault, burglary with assault or battery, and battery, according to the sheriff. They said that twice for some reason. All right, folks, remember, if you're going to go to Subway, stay off that Colombian marching powder. All right, that's going to do it for us today, folks. Don't wait to prepare for an emergency. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.